My boyfriend of 2 years, Jibohang, was on the balcony talking on the phone. Tomorrow come with Wenyao to the old town. You handle the campsite for me. Just say I have a last-minute business trip. The phone slipped from my palm and the screen shattered like a spiderweb. I didn't argue or make a scene. The next day I shouldered my hiking pack and went to the campsite alone, and on the patch of grass where he had promised to watch the stars with me, I deleted all his contact information. I told myself that from now on there would be no Jibohang in my life plan. I worked late until 9, carrying 2 bags of the Japanese food Jibohang likes. As I pushed open the front door, the entryway light was off. Only a floor lamp was on in the living room. Jibohang's dress shoes were crooked by the door, but he wasn't on the sofa. I heard voices coming from the balcony. The glass door was ajar and the night breeze billowed the sheer curtain. I set the food on the coffee table and walked over, intending to call him to eat. When I walked over to the sofa, I heard his voice. Tomorrow accompany Wenyao to the ancient town. You handle the campsite situation for me. Just say I had a sudden business trip. My footsteps froze on the floor. On the other end of the phone was his brother Aken's voice. I could tell. Damn, how are you going to explain that to your girlfriend? Weren't you supposed to go camping together? Jibohang let out a laugh. I'm very familiar with that laugh. It's the one he uses at the negotiation table to soothe an opponent, a casual arrogance wrapped in understatement. Her, easy to please, buy her a bag and it's done. Aken asked again. So have you made up your mind yet? Who will you choose? When Yaro's family is in real estate, her father has projects worth billions in his hands. Jibohang was silent for 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds I heard my own heartbeat, thud, 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 as if someone were hammering nails into my chest. When Yaro's side is almost settled, her dad finally let me join the East City project. When Ening's side, wait a bit longer, her outdoor brand's valuation has been rising lately, maybe she can cash out. Aken whistled. Good for you, handling both sides without missing a beat. Jibohang lowered his voice, but I heard him clearly. When Ening is fine in every way, except she's too competitive, a girl who started out hawking goods on the street, does she really think she can accomplish anything big? I need to carefully calculate the return on the time I invest in her. I took a step back. My heels struck the plant stand. The pot hose on top wobbled. The bottom of the pot hit the tile and gave a crisp clack. The conversation on the balcony stopped abruptly. I turned quickly, grabbed the bag of Japanese food from the coffee table, tiptoed back to the entryway, then slammed the door shut and pretended I had just returned. I'm back. Jibohang came out from the balcony, his face wearing that gentle smile I knew all too well. He was in loungewear, his hair a bit messy. He came over and took the bag from my hands. Why so late? I'm starving. I looked into his eyes. Those eyes were full of laughter, full of concern, full of all the tenderness a perfect boyfriend should have. If I hadn't just heard it with my own ears, I would never in my life have suspected those eyes of lying. Working late, I said, my voice so calm it felt strange even to me. He bowed his head and kissed my forehead. You've worked hard. I've prepared everything for tomorrow's camping, the tent, the sleeping bags, the grill. Just show up. My fingertips dug into my palm. Tomorrow. I paused. Are you sure tomorrow won't be a problem? His hands didn't even pause as he opened the sushi box. What could go wrong? I specifically pushed all the Monday meetings. Lies. He didn't even need to think. Lies flowed from his mouth, as natural as breathing. I sat across from him, watching him eat the salmon sashimi I bought, watching him smile as he picked up a piece of sweet shrimp for me, watching him say, tomorrow the campsite I'll take you to can see the Milky Way. I put the sweet shrimp in my mouth, chewed twice and couldn't swallow. I'm going to take a shower. I stood up. He called from behind. Go to bed early. You have to get up early tomorrow. I shut the bathroom door, turned on the shower, and the sound of water covered everything. I stood under the stream, staring at a black spot on the tile, with only one thought in my head. 2 years, 730 days. I wrote him into every plan I had for the future, while he treated me like an asset awaiting appraisal, ready to be sold at any time. I turned off the water, dried myself, and walked barefoot back to the bedroom. He was already asleep, breathing evenly. The contours of his profile looked good under the nightlight. I opened the wardrobe, took out my backpack, and began packing: tent, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, stove, gas canister, shell jacket, headlamp, first aid kit. I can pack all this with my eyes closed because I designed every piece myself. I carried my bag to the entryway and changed into my hiking shoes. Ji Bohan turned over, muttered something and fell back asleep. I opened the door, stepped into the elevator and pressed the B1 parking button. As the elevator descended, I pulled out my phone, opened the contacts and found Ji Bohan's name. I didn't hesitate, delete the contact, text message history, wiped, WeChat, delete and block, select all the photos of us together in the album and delete them. My phone vibrated, notifying me that iCloud sync was complete. I slipped my phone into my pocket and drove out of the underground garage. The navigation destination was Tsueyun Mountain Campsite. Navigation shows arrival at 2 a.m. When I got onto the highway, the city lights outside the car window grew smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. An English song was playing on the stereo, a husky female voice singing "I Will Survive." I turned up the volume. At 1:40 a.m. I arrived at the parking lot at the foot of Tsueyun Mountain. The campsite is on an alpine meadow and requires a 40-minute hike to reach. I slung on my backpack, turned on my headlamp, and began climbing. The night wind was cool. For every 100 meters in elevation the temperature dropped by 1 degree. My shell jacket is the flagship product of my own brand, made with GTX fabric, windproof and breathable, something I spent 8 months developing. I tread on the gravel road, my trekking pole piercing the soil with a dull thud. 40 minutes later, I arrived at the campsite. The grass was even, surrounded by dark pine woods, and the stars overhead were so dense it was like someone had scattered a handful of salt. I found a flat spot, set up the tent, drove in the pegs, and laid out the ground sheet and sleeping bag. Everything was done in one go, wrapped up in 15 minutes. I sat at the tent entrance, tilting my head back to look at the stars. You really could see the Milky Way spanning the sky like a glowing river. I pulled a can of beer from the side pocket of my backpack, the kind Ji Bohan always drinks, taken from the fridge before I left. I pulled the tab, bubbles rose up and I took a big gulp, bitter. I stared at the stars overhead and began to take stock in my head. Ji Bohan, 32, president of Hungyuan Capital. We were together 2 years. He helped me secure 2 suppliers, introduced me to 3 investors, and helped me get on stage at the Outdoor Industry Summit. I always thought that was love. Now that I understand, it was feeding. He scattered the feed outside the cage, making me think he was going to take me flying when actually he was fattening me up to slaughter me later. I took out my phone, no signal. I opened the memo app and typed a line. From today on, Ji Bohan is no longer part of my life plan. Then I turned off my phone, crawled into my sleeping bag and closed my eyes. The next morning, I was woken by the sound of birdsong. Sunlight filtered through the tent mesh, warm and pleasant. I unzipped, stretched, and saw the distant ridges looming faintly in the morning mist. I brewed a pot of coffee, toasted 2 slices of bread, and sat on the grass to eat them slowly. Then I set off hiking, setting out from the campsite. I followed the ridge for 6 hours, crossed 2 summits, and returned to the parking lot at 3 in the afternoon. When I turned on my phone, 37 missed calls flooded in, all from Ji Bohan. There were also 14 WeChat messages shown in my texts because I had been blocked. Where did you go? Why did you block me? When Ening, are you crazy? Pick up the phone. I called the police. The last message was, did you hear something? I stared at the message for 5 seconds, then made a call. It wasn't to Ji Bohan, it was to my lawyer, Fang Yuan. Lawyer Fang, I need you to draft a document for me. Yes, a breakup statement. No, there's no property dispute. What I need is a commercial severance statement. Hungyuan Capital holds 15% of my company's shares. I want to trigger the right of first refusal. Yes, per the contract, a 20% premium. I'll handle the money. After hanging up, I started the car and drove out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, Tsueyun Mountain grew more distant. My phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. I picked up. Ji Bohan's voice exploded through the receiver. When Ening, you fucking. I hung up, then I blocked the unknown number too. The car got onto the highway. I opened the window. The wind rushed in and mussed my hair. I laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh or a wry one, just genuinely funny. I laughed at myself. 2 years and I still hadn't realized I'd been keeping a snake ready to bite me at any moment, but that's okay. A snake bites me once, I'll skin it alive. At 8 on Monday morning when I got to the company, the receptionist girl gave me a strange look. Ningjie, President Ji is inside. I paused mid-step. Which President Ji? Mr. Ji Bohan. He arrived before 8 and has been waiting in your office. When I pushed the door open, Ji Bohan was sitting in my chair with one leg crossed over the other, flipping through the design sketches on my desk. He wore a dark blue tailored suit, Cartier cufflinks at the sleeves, his hair meticulously combed. If I didn't know what a rotten heart hid beneath that skin, the sight would indeed be pleasing. Get out, I said. He looked up at me and threw the design sketch back onto the desk. Wen Yining, have you had your fun? I ignored him, went to the desk and pressed the internal phone. Front desk, send security upstairs. Ji Boheng stood up and grabbed my hand. He was very strong, his knuckles were white and he squeezed my wrist until it hurt. Listen to me. I did. I pulled my hand away and stepped back 2 paces. Is that clear enough? His expression froze for a moment. In that instant a flicker of panic passed through his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. He put on a wounded look, brows knitting slightly, voice softening. Yining, are you misunderstanding something? That night Ji Boheng, I interrupted him. Are you still putting on an act? The corner of his mouth twitched. I heard every single word. I leaned on the desk, arms folded as I looked at him. Accompany Wenyao to the old town. I'll be easy to coax on my end. Wait until my company's valuation rises so I can cash out a bit. What line did I miss? Oh right, coming from a stall background, really thinks they can achieve something big. Ji Boheng's expression changed. In less than a second, his demeanor shifted from mild to icy. He folded away that affectionate facade like removing a mask, revealing the face beneath. His eyes went cold, a mocking curve lifting one corner of his mouth. Fine, he said, unbuttoning his suit and sitting back down. Since you heard it anyway, I won't pretend anymore. He crossed his legs and looked at me with the gaze of someone appraising prey. Wen Yining, do you know why I chased you in the first place? I said nothing. Because you have that drive, that refusal to lose, always climbing upward like a gambler who doesn't care about his life. He lit a cigarette, the smoke drifted in front of me. I like that kind of drive because people like that are easiest to control. The more you want something, the more I can manipulate you. So when you helped me pull in suppliers and introduced investors, it was all bet. He exhaled a puff of smoke. The time, resources, and connections I've invested in you are all investments. Since they're investments, I need to calculate the return. Your extreme realm grew from an annual revenue of 30 million to 100 million. I played an indispensable role. Now it's time for me to recoup my costs. My heart sank for a moment, not because he had hurt my feelings, but because I suddenly realized something. What are you going to do? Ji Boheng stood up, walked over to me and looked down at me from above. I've signed a bet agreement with. They're launching a new brand next year targeting the high-end market. The 3 core designers you had have already jumped ship to my side. My blood rushed to my head. What did you say? Zhu Lin, Zhao Ziheng Li, Meng Yao. He listed them one by one as if reading off a trophy list. Signed the contract yesterday, salary doubled, plus stock options. When they left, they took all the design sketches for your spring-summer collection for next year. I clenched my fists. Zhu Lin is a veteran I've kept by my side since the street stall days. Zhao Ziheng is a pattern maker I taught personally, and Li Mengyao handles fabric procurement. These 3 people hold 80% of my company's core technical data. When did you start digging? 3 months ago. Ji Boheng flicked his ash. Why do you think I wanted to be with you? Do you really think I was after your looks? Wen Yining, you're not bad looking, but I've slept with far more beautiful women. What I wanted was the stuff in your head and the resources in your hands. He walked to the door and glanced back at me. By the way, your core supplier, the fabric factory in Taiju, just sent me a confirmation letter. Starting next month, they'll only supply my orders as for your bank loan. I gave them a heads up last Friday. The branch manager said the risk assessment didn't pass and the 30 million credit line has been revoked. He smiled and opened the door. Wen Yining, you wanted to cut ties with me. Fine, I'll cut you off clean. You can cling to your little workshop and slowly struggle. The moment the door closed, I heard him say to the front desk in the hallway, your boss owes me 15 million in investment funds. Remind her to pay it back. I stood rooted to the spot, my nails digging into my palm. The office was very quiet, with only the clock on the wall ticking, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. I picked up my phone and called Lawyer Fang Yuan. Lawyer Fang, things have changed. Ji Boheng poached 3 of my core employees, took the design plans and even intercepted suppliers. I need you to do 3 things for me. First, sue those 3 employees for breaching their non-compete agreements. Second, investigate Ji Boheng's shareholding structure in Hengyuan Capital. Third, I take a deep breath. Third, help me find a New fabric supplier within 48 hours, no matter how expensive, no matter where, I want them. After hanging up, I pushed open the office door. The company was empty. The open plan space that used to be filled with designers now had only 2 people left. One is my assistant Xiao He. The other is my old accountant sister Wang, who has been with me since I was running a street stall. Xiao He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Sister Ning, Ju Lin, and the others, are they really gone? Yes, I said. Who else is leaving? If you want to go now, I won't stop you. The remaining people looked at one another, and then 3 more stood up, packed their things and left. In the end, only Xiao He and Sister Wang were left in the large room. I looked at them and smiled. Are you scared? Xiao He shook his head. No. Sister Wang pushed up her glasses. I'm old, what is there to be afraid of? But you, Yi Ning, what do you plan to do? I walked up to the whiteboard, picked up a marker and wrote 2 characters on it. Counterattack. Then I drew a timeline beneath them. 3 months from now, Tuorfeng Outdoor is going to launch a new brand. Jiboheng has poured 100 million into marketing, hired an A-list celebrity endorsement, and is plastering ads everywhere. What he wants is an overnight hit and then, riding on that success, push Hengyuan Capital's valuation to 5 billion and go public to cash out. I turned around and looked at Xiao He and Sister Wang. So we only need to do one thing, make his new brand. Die on the day of the launch. Sister Wang sucked in a breath. How do we do that? I picked up my phone, opened my contacts and found a number I hadn't dialed in 3 years. Find an old friend. That old friend was called Chen Bo, full name Chen Guodong. 10 years ago, he was a legend in China's mountaineering gear circle. His handmade down sleeping bags and shell jackets were referred to within the industry as the Chen Three Wonders. At the peak of his factory's operation, it had an annual output value of 200 million yuan, exporting to Europe, America, and Japan. Then he had an accident. A batch of metal buckles for climbing ropes failed metal fatigue tests. He insisted on a recall, but his partner disagreed and secretly sold that shipment to a European mountaineering club. 3 months later, a Swiss climber fell to his death on Mont Blanc when a buckle broke. The lawsuit dragged on for 2 years. Chen Bo lost his entire fortune and paid the victim's family 8 million. His partner fled. The factory was sealed and he was permanently blacklisted in the industry. After that, Chen Bo vanished. Some say he returned to his ancestral home in Yunnan. Some say he lives reclusively in the deep mountains, and some say he is already dead, but I saw him on a tea mountain in Piyua 3 months ago. He had opened a shoe repair shop in a small village, fixing hiking boots and outdoor backpacks. The skill was still there, but he had aged. His hair was completely white and his back was bent. That day I was going to the tea mountain to discuss a co-branded project. I passed his shop and recognized him at a glance. I went in to have a pair of shoes repaired and talked with him for half an hour. He didn't recognize me, but I remembered the old sewing machine in his shop. That sewing machine was German-made. Fewer than 10 remain in the world specialized for sewing high-strength nylon fabric. I saved his phone number that day. Now it's time to call. The phone rang 4 times, then was answered. Hello, Uncle Chen, I'm Wen Yining, the one who fixed shoes on the tea mountain 3 months ago. Oh, that girl, what's the matter? I'd like to ask you to come out of retirement. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Uncle Chen, I know you've been blacklisted. No one dares to work with you, but I don't care. I need your craftsmanship. I need your sewing machine. I need you to help me make a fabric that will shut the whole industry up. Girl. Chen Bo's voice was hoarse. You don't know what you're talking about. I do. Ji Boheng poached all my designers, cut off my suppliers and stopped my bank loans. He wants me dead, but I don't want to die, so I need you. Silence again. Then Uncle Chen said one sentence. Come find me, bring all your design drawings and a cup of piyua. I flew to Kunming that afternoon and took 3 hours by car to the little village at the foot of that tea mountain. When I arrived it was 9 o'clock at night. The village was in total darkness and only Uncle Chen's shop had a dim yellow light burning. I pushed the door open. Uncle Chen was sitting at the sewing machine, wearing reading glasses, sewing a piece of fabric. He glanced up at me. You're here. Here. I set my backpack down, took out a stack of design drawings and a cup of piyua tea bought from the town down the mountain. Uncle Chen took the tea, sipped and frowned. It's cold. We were delayed on the road. He didn't speak. He set the teacup on the table and picked up the design sheets, examining them one by one. He looked very slowly, turning each sheet over and over several times. Sometimes he ran his finger along the lines on the paper, as if trying to understand the curves by touch. After half an hour, he put the drawings down, took off his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes. "There's nothing wrong with your design," he said. "The problem is the fabric. I know, the fabrics available on the market, whether GTX or Event, can't meet the specifications on your blueprint. What you want is a material that is both waterproof and breathable, can withstand -30 degrees Celsius, and weighs no more than 80 grams per square meter. That kind of thing doesn't exist. That's why I came to see you." Uncle Chen looked at me, a glint passing through his cloudy eyes. 10 years ago I had a technology. He stood up, walked to the back of the shop and took out a stack of yellowed documents from a locked metal cabinet. "I spent 6 years developing a biomimetic fabric that copies the structure of polar bear fur, hollow, insulating, water repellent, extremely light. I ran tests. Every metric exceeded GTX by more than 30%. I took the documents and flipped through them page by page. The data was too beautiful, so beautiful it seemed unreal. And then, why wasn't it mass-produced?" Chen Bo's expression darkened. "I applied for patents 3 times and was rejected 3 times. The patent office examiners told me someone had submitted an almost identical technical proposal before me. They had a top-tier legal team and accused me of plagiarism. Who? I didn't know at the time. After the lawsuit was over, I had someone check and it was a shell company under Hongyuan Capital that filed it. My blood turned cold. Hongyuan Capital, Ji Boheng. Ji Boheng was only in his early 20s back then. It was probably the work of his family," Chen Bo said, lighting a cigarette. "They got my technical plan, my partner sold it to them, then they beat me to registering the patent and turned around and sued me for infringement. That lawsuit was one of the reasons I fell apart." I clenched the documents in my hand. "I see, Ji Boheng had used this set of tactics on me before, poaching people, stealing designs, intercepting suppliers, hijacking patents. He used them 10 years ago. Chen Bo was his first victim." "Chen Bo." I crouched down and looked him in the eye. "If I help you get the patent back, would you be willing to cooperate with me?" Uncle Chen looked at me, the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes folded together like a sheet of crumpled paper. "Girl, do you know who you're up against? The Ji family has been operating in the capital circles for 20 years. They have people in both the legitimate and illegitimate worlds. You're just a young woman, what can you use to fight them?" I took a document out of my backpack and handed it to him. "This is what I had the lawyer look up before I came. Ji Boheng's Hongyuan Capital. On the surface it manages 3 billion, but in reality nearly 1.5 billion of its funds are short-term debt used for long-term investments, all coming due in a concentrated way next March. If his new brand launch fails and investors lose confidence in him, if the banks pull their loans, his capital chain will break." I paused. "He looks like a mountain, but is actually a tall building made of playing cards. Pull out the bottom card and the whole thing collapses." Uncle Chen was silent for a long time. The mountain wind blew in through the window and the drawings on the table rustled loudly. He stood up, walked to the old sewing machine and ran his palm over the rust on its body. "This machine has been with me for 25 years, he said. "When the Germans taught me how to use it, I was only a 30-year-old young man. My wife said I cared for this machine more than I cared for her." He turned around and looked at me. "All right, I'll work with you." That night, Chen Bo and I talked in the shop until 3 in the morning. He laid out every detail of that bionic fabric technology, from raw material ratios to weaving processes, from temperature control to pressure parameters, explaining everything down to the smallest detail. I listened intently and filled my notebook with more than 20 pages of notes. At 3:30, I lay on the army cot in the shop and sent a message to lawyer Fang Yuan. "Help me check Ji Boheng's investment structure in the new brand project to Orfing Outdoor. I need to know how much he invested, what percentage of shares he holds, and the specific terms of the earnout agreement. Also help me arrange a meeting with Wen Yao. Just tell her I want to invite her for a cup of coffee." After sending the message, I closed my eyes. Ji Boheng's face floated up in my mind, the way he smoked in my office, the condescending look when he said, "You're nothing more than one of my investments." I turned over and pulled the quilt over my head. "Sleep. When evening starting tomorrow, you must make this person pay." I stayed at the Tea Mountain for 5 days. During those 5 days Chen Bo and I reviewed that biomimetic fabric technology from start to finish. I discovered a crucial problem. The patent the Jing family grabbed back then actually has a fatal flaw. Uncle Chen, look here. I pointed to a technical parameter in the patent application document. They wrote hollow fiber wall thickness is 003 to 005 micrometers. But according to your experimental records from back then, the optimal wall thickness should be 008 micrometers. They copied the data. Wrong. Uncle Chen put on his reading glasses, peered at it for a long time, then suddenly slapped the table. Right, I tested it repeatedly at the time. 008 is the optimal value. A wall thickness of 003 to 005 will become brittle and break in low temperature environments, and the insulation performance drops by more than 40%. So, I smiled. They filed a patent that has a defect. Also, Uncle Chen pulled out another document. The core process of this technology requires a special heat treatment device. There are only 3 of them in the country, one at a military research institute, one in a university lab, and one, where is it? It's with an old apprentice of mine. He opened a small factory in Suzhou. That piece of equipment was what he moved out of my factory back then. The Ji family don't know about this because they simply don't understand the technology. I took out my phone and wrote down that old apprentice's name and address. There's one more thing. Chen Bo rummaged to the bottom of the metal cabinet and pulled out a brown paper envelope containing a stack of yellowed photos and a few letters. Back then my partner Liu Jiyuan, before he betrayed me, wrote me a letter. In it he admitted that the Ji family gave him 500,000 to steal my technical plans. I've kept that letter all this time and never dared to show it. The lawyer at the time said the letter couldn't be used as direct evidence, but if there are other supporting links in the chain of evidence, it could be the last straw to break the camel's back. I took the envelope, my hand trembling slightly. This wasn't a letter, it was a bomb. On the 5th day when I left the tea hills, Uncle Chen stood at the shop doorway to see me off. Girl, he said, I'm entrusting this old life of mine to you, Uncle Chen. Don't worry, I'm not only going to get your patent back, I'm going to make Ji Boheng kneel and apologize to you. Uncle Chen smiled, said nothing, and turned to walk into the shop. The first thing I did after returning to Shenzhen was go see Wen Yao around the coffee shop beneath her office building. Wen Yao arrived 10 minutes before me, sitting by the window with an Americano in front of her. She was wearing a white Chanel jacket, her hair tied in a low ponytail, makeup refined but not heavy. She was indeed beautiful, one of those women who makes you think at a glance, this woman is not ordinary. I sat down and got straight to the point. Miss Wen, thank you for agreeing to meet me. Wen Yao looked at me and there was a very subtle expression in her eyes, not hostility, not sympathy, but more like appraisal. Miss Wen, I know why you came to see me. She picked up her coffee cup and took a sip. It's about Ji Boheng, right? Yes. You want me to help you deal with him? No. I shook my head. I want to know whether you knew he was pursuing both you and me. Wen Yao put down her coffee cup. The bottom tapped the saucer with a soft clink. I know. I froze. I knew from the beginning. Wen Yao's tone was very calm, as if she were talking about something unrelated to herself. When he was pursuing me, I checked his background. He had a girlfriend who ran an outdoor brand, self-made, and very impressive. Then why are you still? Because I have my own agenda too. When Yao looked at me, Miss Wen, do you think I'm the kind of naive sweetheart who gets fooled by men? No. I got close to Ji Boheng because I needed the East City project resources he controlled. My family is in real estate. The East City plot is the core development area for the next 5 years, and the Ji family has connections in the planning bureau. I was silent for 3 seconds, then I laughed. Miss Wen, it seems we're the same. The same how? Both using Ji Boheng as a tool. The only difference is I thought I was falling in love while you know you're doing business. The corner of Wen Yao's mouth lifted slightly. You finally figured it out. She took a document out of her bag and pushed it in front of me. This is Ji Boheng's capital structure. Hung Yuan Capital manages 3 billion in assets, of which 1.5 billion are debts maturing next year. He poured 300 million into Orfeng Outdoor's new brand, 200 million of which came from high-interest loans, at a monthly interest rate of 3%. I flipped through the document page by page. The numbers were alarming. Ji Boheng's entire business empire was like a castle built on quicksand. He needed the new brand Orfeng Outdoor to be an instant hit, needed the company's valuation to double before next March, and needed that performance to persuade the bank to renew the loan. If the new brand failed, he will die. When Yarrow spoke those 3 words for me, I looked up at her. What do you want? I don't want anything. When Yarrow lifted her coffee cup, I only want Ji Bohang to stay away from me. He proposed to me last month and I turned him down. Do you know what he did? He went to my dad and told him that we were already together, asking my dad to give him the development rights to the Chengdong project. Did your dad believe him? Almost. Luckily I had already given my dad a heads up. When Yarrow sneered, Ji Bohang's biggest problem isn't that he's a womanizer, it's that he's greedy. He wants everything and won't let go of anything. People like that will end up losing badly. I put the documents away and stood up. Miss Wen, thank you for the coffee. Miss Wen, when Yarrow called after me, there's something I need to tell you. Ji Bohang knows you came to see me. I stopped in my tracks. He called me yesterday and said you were colluding with me against him. He also said, when Yarrow paused, he said you'd regret it. I turned around and looked at Wen Yao. Tell him I'm waiting for him. As I walked out of the cafe, my phone rang. It was lawyer Fang Yuan. Ening, I found it. Ji Bohang holds 40% of the new brand project to Orfing Outdoor. The earn-out agreement requires the new brand to achieve 200 million yuan in revenue in its first year. Otherwise he has to personally make up the shortfall. Also those 3 designers who jumped ship. I've already filed the non-compete lawsuit. The court hearing is next week. Good. One more thing, lawyer Fang. I need you to help me prepare a patent invalidation petition. It's for a bionic fabric technology patent from 10 years ago. The patentee is a shell company under Hongyuan Capital. The grounds are, the technical data is erroneous and it is not enabled. Fang Yuan was silent for 2 seconds. Do you have evidence? I have the original experimental records, development logs, and a handwritten letter from a partner back then. Enough, give me a week. After hanging up, I stood by the street watching the stream of passers-by. The sunshine was lovely, warming me all over. I lowered my head to glance at the phone screen. The wallpaper was a photo, the starry sky over the Tsueyun mountain campsite. I took that with my own phone and after taking it I erased every trace of Ji Bohang. Only this photo remains because he isn't in this photo, only the sky, the earth, and myself, the Shenzhen High-Tech Trade Fair, held every November at the Convention and Exhibition Center, is the largest technology and product showcase platform in the whole South China region. I brought 3 sample garments that Chen Bo and I had rushed to make overnight and applied for the smallest booth, 9 square meters, in the far corner of the hall, next to the restrooms. Ji Bohang's To Orfing Outdoor occupied the center of the hall, a 200 square meter custom booth whose construction alone cost 3 million. A huge LED screen looped commercials featuring celebrity endorsers. The stand was piled with brightly colored shell jackets and mountaineering gear, and dealers and media crowded around in an endless stream. I stood in front of my tiny booth, hung the 3 sample garments on hangers, and placed a handwritten sign beside them. Extreme Realm Times new biomimetic fabric sample display. No one came on the first day of the trade fair. Over 1,000 people passed by my booth. Only 7 stopped to take a look, then shook their heads and moved on. I'm not in a hurry. On the morning of the second day, I finally met the person I'd been waiting for. Wen Yarrow was wearing a sharp black suit and, accompanied by her assistant, walked straight to my booth. Miss Wen, we meet again. Miss Wen, welcome. She picked up a sample garment, turning it over and over as she examined it, her fingers pinching the texture of the fabric, her expression shifting from indifferent to focused. What fabric is this? Biomimetic hollow fiber fabric modeled on polar bear hair structure, waterproof rating 20000, breathability rating 15000, passed insulation test at -30 degrees, 78 grams per square meter. When Yarrow looked up at me, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Are these figures real? You can test it yourself. She handed the sample garment to her assistant. Take it back and have the lab test it, every metric, nothing left out. The assistant nodded and left with the sample garment. When Yarrow leaned against the display stand and lowered her voice to ask me, "Where did you get this thing?" "An old friend," I said, "an old friend who was ruined and lost everything 10 years ago because of Ji Bohang." When Yarrow's expression changed, 10 years ago Ji Bohang, he was only 22 then, but his family wasn't. I took a copy of Chen Bo's old patent documents out of my bag and handed them to Wen Yarrow. "Look at this." Wen Yarrow flipped through a few pages, her expression growing increasingly grave. "He stole someone else's patent. He stole it, copied the data incorrectly, and then turned around and sued the inventor. That person paid 8 million in compensation and was blacklisted for 10 years. Wen Yao put the documents back in her bag and took a deep breath. Wen Yining, I helped you before because I wanted Ji Boheng to stay away from me, but it's different now. What do you mean? I found out something. Wen Yao lowered her voice. Ji Boheng isn't just pursuing me and you, this celebrity, he's also chasing an actress, Lin Xiyu, the supporting actress from The Longest Day in Chang'an. Last week he took Lin Xiyu on vacation to Sonia and stayed at my family's hotel. The front desk manager took a photo. She pulled a photo from her phone and handed it to me. In the photo, Ji Boheng had his arm around a young woman's waist as they checked in at the hotel lobby. The woman's face was partly obscured by her hair, but her profile did look like that actress. 3. I counted. You mean Lin Xiyu at the same time? No. When Yao shook her head, it's 4. There's another one, his company's legal director called Shen Bing. My people found that last month he charged 800,000 on a card in Macau for Shen Bing buying 2 Hermes bags. I couldn't help laughing, not because it was funny but because it was absurd. Where would he get the energy? He doesn't see it as a problem. Wen Yao put away her phone. Someone like Ji Boheng treats women as asset allocation. Me, I bring real estate resources, you, industrial resources. Lin Xiyu, the celebrity halo. Shen Bing, legal tools. In his eyes everyone has a price tag. He's just diversifying his asset allocation. So what are you going to do? Wen Yao looked at me, her gaze steady. Make him blow up his account. That afternoon when Yao's assistant brought back the test results, all the indicators met the standards, and some exceeded expectations. When Yao decided on the spot, I'm investing in you 50 million for 10%. I looked at her. Aren't you afraid Ji Boheng will retaliate? I'm afraid, Wen Yao said, but I'm more afraid of being tied to a liar. Wen Yining, do you know last month Ji Boheng went to see my father, saying he wanted a cut of the East City project. My father, seeing him as a prospective son-in-law, gave him a 5% dry equity stake. If I hadn't exposed him, that 5% would have been handed to him for nothing. So you voted for me in order to let my father know what kind of person Ji Boheng really is. When Yao stood up, held out her hand. Pleasure doing business. I held her hand. Pleasure doing business. On the 3rd day of the trade fair the reversal came. Ji Boheng somehow got wind that when Yao had met with me, he showed up at my booth with 2 bodyguards, storming over with a menacing air. Wen Yining, do you think you've won just by clinging to Wen Yao? He stood in front of me, suit immaculate, expression icy, followed by a group of onlookers. I didn't get up. I sat on a folding chair and looked up at him. Manager Ji, are you speaking so loudly because you're afraid people won't know you were chasing 4 women at once? A low murmur ran through the surrounding crowd. Ji Boheng's face changed. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not making it up. I picked up my phone, opened the photo Wen Yao had sent me and turned the screen toward him. This is you and Lin Xiyu and Sonia. Do you want me to release the card records showing you and Shen Bing in Macau, or would you prefer I play the recording of your phone call on the balcony that night? Ji Boheng's pupils suddenly constricted. He reached for my phone. I quickly withdrew it and slipped it into my pocket. President Ji, this is a public place. Watch your manners. He took a deep breath and lowered his voice. Wen Yining, do you think your little tricks can hurt me? Your company is on the verge of collapse. Suppliers have cut you off, bank loans stopped, designers have fled. What do you have to fight me with? I took a hiking backpack out from under the table and tossed it at his feet. This, Ji Boheng glanced down, didn't understand. This is a finished backpack made from biomimetic fabric. I said, its insulation is 30% better than your GTX, it's 40% lighter, and costs 20% less. Mr. Ji, your new brand hasn't even launched and it's already outdated. Ji Boheng picked up the backpack, turned it over and over, his expression shifting from anger to confusion then to fear. He recognized the fabric. This is Chen Guodong's technique. Good that you recognize it. I stood up and looked him in the eye. Ji Boheng, 10 years ago you stole Chen Bo's patent and drove his family to ruin. 10 years later you came to steal my designs, poach my people and cut off my path. Do you think you can walk away unscathed this time? Ji Boheng's lips trembled slightly, but he was trying to control himself. You think making a few sample garments will turn things around? Wen Yining, you have no factory, no supply chain, no channels. Even if you create a beautiful piece you won't be able to sell Is that so? I smiled. Then guess why when Yarrow invested in me? Ji Boheng's pupils contracted again. He turned and saw Wen Yarrow standing at the edge of the crowd, arms folded across her chest, expressionless as she watched him. Ji Boheng. Wen Yarrow's voice was very calm. My father has decided he wants the equity stake in the East City project back. Ji Boheng's face at that moment went completely pale. After the crowd dispersed, Ji Boheng stood in front of my booth like a tree struck by lightning. Wen Yining, you'll regret this. The thing I regret most is taking 2 years to see you clearly. He turned and left, his steps much quicker than when he came, almost a jog. I watched his back vanish into the crowd in the exhibition hall, took out my phone and sent Fang Yuan a message. Is the petition to declare the patent invalid ready? Ready, I'll submit it next Monday. Okay, also contact that old apprentice of Chen Bo's for me. I want to go to Suzhou to see him. The Outdoor Industry Annual Summit took place the first weekend of December in the banquet hall of the Shenzhen Intercontinental Hotel. This was the most important annual event for the entire outdoor gear industry. All the brands, suppliers, distributors, and media attended. The awards banquet on the final night of the summit was the most important social occasion for everyone, because here you could meet all your competitors, potential partners, and investors. When I received the invitation, I hesitated for 3 seconds. Should I go or not? If I go, it means I'll have to face Ji Boheng head on. If I don't, it means I'm afraid. I chose to go. On the night of the banquet, I wore a black evening gown with a white Jijing shell jacket over it. The combination was odd, but that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted everyone to remember that a shell jacket isn't just for mountaineering, it can be very fashionable. Ji Boheng sat at the head table. Next to him was the general manager of his new brand Tuorfeng Outdoor, and beside him were several big shots from the investment world. He wore a tailored grey suit and a fitting smile, looking proud and self-satisfied, but I noticed one detail. His fingers kept tapping on the table. He was nervous. Halfway through the banquet, the host announced a segment. Now please welcome Mr. Ji Boheng, president of Hongyuan Capital, to share his insights on investment trends in the outdoor industry. Ji Boheng stood up, adjusted his tie, and walked onto the stage. He picked up the microphone, exchanged a few polite remarks, then shifted his tone. The outdoor gear industry has seen many new brands emerge in recent years. Some founders have inspiring backgrounds, starting from street stalls and building up from nothing. But I have to be honest, this industry can't be built on sentiment alone. It needs technology, it needs supply chains, it needs capital. Without those, you're running around naked. Someone in the audience laughed. Ji Boheng continued, I recently saw a brand that claims to have developed some revolutionary fabric with astonishing data, but when I looked into it, the founder of this brand didn't even graduate from college, and her so-called R&D team is just a 70-year-old retired man. I would like to ask everyone present here, would you dare invest in such a brand? His gaze swept across the audience, finally landing on me. All the eyes in the room followed him and turned toward me. I sat in my seat, not moving. Ji Boheng's lips curled into a smug arc. Miss Wen, I wasn't talking about you, don't get the wrong idea. After he finished speaking, an awkward ripple of laughter rose from the audience. I stood up, the whole room fell silent. I'm wearing a white windbreaker, and from the last row, I walk step by step toward the stage. High heels strike the marble floor with a crisp sound. Ka. The entire banquet hall falls silent. I stepped up to the stage, took the microphone from the host and turned to face everyone. Mr. Ji is right, I did not graduate from university. In my sophomore year my family had a crisis. My father fell ill and I had to earn money to support the household. So I ran a street stall for 2 years in Dongmen, Shenzhen, every day from 5 in the afternoon until 2 in the morning. The audience was very quiet. But Mr. Ji left out one thing. Although I didn't finish university, the jacket I designed won 3 Red Dot Design Awards. My brand took 4 years to grow from zero to an annual revenue of 100 million. My customer repurchase rate is 6 to 7%, the highest in the industry. I turned my head to look at Ji Boheng on the stage. President Ji, the 70-year-old retired old man you mentioned, is Chen Guodong. 10 years ago, he was the top technical expert in China's mountaineering equipment industry. The biomimetic fabric technology he developed had performance metrics that were a decade ahead of the industry. But that technology was stolen, appropriated by a capital company that used a shell to grab the patent. Ji Boheng's expression changed. You, President Ji, don't get ahead of yourself, I haven't finished. I took a small voice recorder out of my bag and held it above my head. I have a recording here, it's the minutes from the last meeting of my 3 former employees, the same 3 you poached, before they resigned. Guess what they were talking about? Ji Boheng's expression changed from anger to panic. I pressed play. A woman's voice came from the voice recorder. It was Ju Lin, my former lead designer. President Ji said that as long as we bring next year's design plans over, each of us would get an extra 500,000 yuan signing bonus. He also said he would use those designs for Tuorfing Outdoors' new brand, and that if Jijing goes under, it won't be too late for us to go back anyway. He would take care of the non-compete agreements for us. The recording played for 30 seconds. I turned it off. The entire hall fell silent. Ji Boheng's face went from white to red, then to purple, as if someone had grabbed his throat. Mr. Ji, I said, looking at him. Do you have anything else to say? A middle-aged man in the audience stood up. He was Mr. Wang, CEO of Pinnacle Outdoors, one of Ji Boheng's most important potential clients. President Ji. President Wang's voice was very cold. I need an explanation. My company cannot partner with a brand that rose to fame by stealing designs. Another woman stood up. She was the purchasing director of Shanhe Equipment. President Ji, we just signed a letter of intent last week. I'm withdrawing it now. A third, a fourth, a fifth person stood up. Ji Boheng stood on the stage, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. I pocketed the recorder and turned to face everyone in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Jijing will release a new line of biomimetic fabrics next March. At that time, I will invite each of you present to go to the snowy mountains to witness the product testing in person. If the tests fail, I, Wen Yining, will jump off the mountain in front of you all. A commotion rose from the crowd below. I smiled. Just kidding, but if the test fails, I'll buy each of you a set of equipment. Applause broke out from the audience, not the polite, perfunctory kind, but genuine applause full of shock and admiration. As I walked off the stage, I passed by Ji Boheng. He reached out to grab my arm, and I sidestepped to avoid him. Mr. Ji, that's the first slap. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse. Wen Yining, you'll regret this. You've already said that. I walked out of the banquet hall without looking back. Behind me, the chatter in the banquet hall bubbled like a pot of boiling water. I pushed open the hotel's front doors and a blast of cold wind hit me. December in Shenzhen isn't cold, but even in my shell jacket, I still felt a hint of chill. I stood at the doorway and took a deep breath. The phone rang. It was lawyer Fang Yuan. Yining, the petition for patent invalidation has been submitted. The court will hold a hearing next month. Okay, one more thing. Lawyer Fang, check for me who the creditor is for Ji Boheng's 200 million usurious loan. I already checked. It's a private lending company called Dingsheng Financial. The boss behind it is Ma Dong, a figure operating in the gray area. Ji Boheng used Hongyuan Capital's equity as collateral. If he can't repay when it's due, Ma Dong has the right to dispose of his shares. Arrange a meeting with Ma Dong for me. Just tell him I want to invite him to dinner. Yining, what are you planning to do? I want to buy Ji Boheng's debt. Fang Yuan was silent for a long time. Do you know what that means? If you buy his debt and he can't repay it when it's due, you'll be his creditor. You can apply to auction off his equity and push him out completely. I know, that will take at least 200 million. Wen Yao invested 50 million in me, and Jijing can squeeze out another 30 million in cash flow. We're still short 120 million. What's your plan? I looked up at the night sky. In Shenzhen you can't see the stars at night, only a hazy blanket of clouds and the aviation warning lights atop distant high-rises. Sell the house, I said. What is it? My apartment is worth 30 million on the market. If I mortgage it to the bank, I can borrow 20 million, the rest of the 100 million. I paused. I'll find Uncle Chen. If we recover his technical patents, their valuation will be at least 300 million. I'll use the patents as collateral and borrow money from an industry fund. Yining, are you crazy? You're betting everything you have. Lawyer Fang, I said. I'm not gambling, I'm calculating. Ji Boheng, this man owes me an explanation from the inside out, from feelings to business. It's not his money I want, it's his life. After hanging up, I stood in the cold wind and zipped my jacket up to the top. The collar hid half my face, leaving only a pair of eyes exposed. There was no anger in those eyes, No sorrow, only a chilling, razor-sharp clarity. The new product launch was scheduled for March 15th at Shenzhen Bay Sports Center with a capacity of 3,000. I started preparations a month in advance. Invitations were sent out, a media list of 300 outlets was compiled, the on-site setup plan was revised 7 times, 200 sample garments were produced, and every detail was double and triple checked. Then, 3 days before the launch, Ji Boheng made his move. On the morning of March 12, I received a call from the sports center operator. Miss Wen, I'm very sorry to inform you that your venue booking for March 15th has been cancelled. What? The contract was signed and the deposit was paid. The fire department inspected yesterday and said the venue's fire safety system does not meet the standards for large events and requires rectification. The renovation period will be at least a month. There's nothing we can do. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. Fire inspection. Ji Boheng has connections in the planning bureau and of course he also has them in the fire department. I opened my contacts and made 10 calls looking for every connection I could find. The answer is the same. The fire safety rectification notice has already been issued. There is no room for discussion. Xiaohe kept fretting. Ning, what should we do? Invitations have been sent out, 300 media outlets, more than 1,000 distributors, as well as investors and industry experts. Everyone has booked flights and hotels. I know. I sat in the office staring at the timetable filled on the whiteboard. There are 72 hours left until the press conference. Change the venue. Is there still time? I opened the map and listed all the venues in Shenzhen that can accommodate more than 500 people. Convention centers, hotel banquet halls, theaters, stadiums, all fully booked. March is peak season for exhibitions. All the venues were snapped up 6 months in advance. Sister Ning, Sister Wang pushed the door open, her face looking very sour. Ji Boheng posted something on social media. She handed me her phone. Screenshot of Ji Boheng's moments. Heard a certain brand's new product launch was postponed due to technical reasons. Haha, armchair theories really can't perform on the big stage. Someone commented below, is Mr. Ji referring to Jijing? Ji Boheng replied with a hand-over-mouth laughing emoji. I handed the phone back to Sister Wang, stood up and walked to the window. Outside was Shenzhen's skyline, skyscrapers rising everywhere, traffic flowing like a river. My gaze fell on a mountain in the distance. No, it's not a mountain, it's Wutong Mountain, Shenzhen's highest peak, with an elevation of 943 meters. I turned around. Xiaohe, call all the invited media and guests and notify them. The press conference location has changed. Where to change? Wutong Mountain, Haohampo Square, March 15 th 10:00 am. Start on time. Xiaohe widened his eyes. Wutong Mountain, outdoors. Yes, outdoors. Ji Boheng said I only fight on paper, didn't he? Then I'll show him what real combat looks like. Xiaohe opened his mouth about to say something but seeing my expression swallowed his words. Also, I said, contact the Shenzhen Mountaineering Association and ask them to send professional coaches and a safety team to support us. Contact the meteorological station for the weather forecast at the top of Wutong Mountain on March 15. Contact the rescue team and prepare an emergency plan. Sis Ning, what if it rains that day? Then it will rain, I said. My shell jacket is meant to be worn in the rain. March 15 9:00 am. Wutong Mountain Hero Slope Square. The weather was not cooperating. It had been raining lightly on the mountain since dawn. The temperature had plunged to 5 degrees, and the wind at the summit reached force 6. I stood in the square watching the workers set up a temporary stage and tents in the rain. The sound equipment was covered with waterproof cloth. The technicians were testing the gear, their hands frozen bright red. The media and guests arrived one after another. Some wore raincoats, some held umbrellas, some shivered from the cold, but no one left, because everyone wanted to see the spectacle. A female founder holding a product launch in a torrential downpour, to find out whether she truly had the nerve or was just seeking attention. At 9:40 Ji Boheng arrived as well. He wore a black coat, held a black umbrella, flanked by 2 bodyguards. Standing at the back of the crowd with that familiar mocking smile on his face, a woman stood beside him wearing a designer down jacket, her makeup exquisite. It was Shen Bing, his legal director, the woman he had spent 800,000 in Macau on. I stood at the side of the stage and saw them, but said nothing. At exactly 10 o'clock I walked onto the stage, no umbrella, no raincoat, wearing only a white Jijing shell jacket and matching shell pants. Rain struck my face, my hair soaked and plastered to my forehead. I picked up the microphone. Everyone, sorry to have you getting rained on up here, but I have to be honest, this rain came at the perfect time. A low ripple of laughter ran through the crowd below. Today I'm launching a bionic fabric shell jacket designed specifically for extreme environments. The lab numbers looked great, a waterproof rating of 20,000, a breathability rating of 15,000, and it passed insulation tests down to -30 degrees. But I know you don't trust lab data. I handed the microphone to the staff member beside me, picked up a sample jacket from the table and put it on, so I plan to demonstrate it for you in person. I turned and walked toward the trailhead for the climbing path at the edge of the plaza. The whole room erupted. The host picked up the microphone. Chairman Wen, what are you going to do? Climb the mountain. I glanced back at him. From Haohan Slope to the summit, the altitude difference is 300 meters, the distance is 15 kilometers. At a normal speed it takes 40 minutes. I'm starting now. Wait for you at the summit after 40 minutes. If you want to see it, follow me. I turned and walked onto the mountain trail. Behind me the crowd exploded. Some people followed me up, some hesitated where they stood, and some took out their phones to live stream. Ji Boheng stood in place, his face ashen. The mountain trail was all stone steps, washed by rain, wet and slippery. My hiking boots are from my own brand, with Vibram soles and excellent grip. With each step, the soles bit into the wet stone, squeaking. The rain grew heavier and the wind grew stronger. By the time I reached the mid-mountain, the wind was at least a force 7. Standing on the ridge, I felt as if I could be blown away at any moment. My shell jacket did its job in the heavy rain. The water beaded on the fabric and rolled off, so the surface stayed dry. Inside, my body was dry, even slightly sweating, but the sweat wickered through the material, so there was no stuffy feeling. 20 minutes later, I reached the summit. The wind on the summit was stronger and the rain heavier. Visibility was less than 50 meters. I stood on the viewing platform at the summit, turned around and looked at the crowd that had followed me up. About 200 people had climbed up behind me, panting, drenched through, but their eyes were bright. I picked up the microphone. Everyone, this shell I'm wearing now, I wore it in a downpour for 20 minutes and climbed 300 meters in elevation. You can come and feel it yourselves. The outside of the jacket is wet, but inside it's dry. A few people walked over and reached out to touch my jacket. It's really dry. Oh my god, the outside is completely soaked, but there's not a drop of water inside. This fabric is incredible. I laughed. That's not even the most impressive part. The most impressive thing is, this hardshell jacket sells for only 60% of the price of comparable GTX products. There was another gasp from the audience. Just then a voice came from the back of the crowd. Fake, it's definitely fake. She's wearing a waterproof layer under her clothes. It was Ji Boheng. He had climbed up at some point too and was standing at the back of the crowd. His overcoat was soaked through by the rain, his hair plastered to his scalp, looking utterly bedraggled, but he was still smiling, that kind of unwilling, teeth-gritted smile. When Ening, have everyone check whether you're wearing a plastic raincoat under your clothes. I looked into his eyes. Then, I did something no one expected. I pulled down the zipper and took off the shell jacket. There was only a single black quick-dry t-shirt inside, soaked through, clinging to the body and outlining its curves. No plastic raincoat, no waterproof layer, just one drenched t-shirt. The whole venue fell silent. Then the applause thundered. I put the soft shell back on, zipped it up and faced everyone. General Manager Ji, is there anything else you want to say? Ji Boheng stood in the rain, his expression shifting from anger to fear, because at that moment, the internet celebrity live streamer beside him who was holding a phone suddenly shouted into the camera, "Everyone, this jacket is awesome, I'm buying it, where's the link?" The live comments instantly flooded the screen. "I want one too, how much is it? Where can I buy it? Give me 5 of them." That streamer, a blogger called Outdoor Old Jong who had 6 million followers, had originally been paid by Ji Boheng to cause trouble. But after witnessing the test in person he defected. "Mr. Ji, I'm sorry, this product is too powerful, I have to promote it." Old Jong shouted into the camera, "Folks, the Jijing brand, go to the official website to order now. The first batch of 10,000 units sold out 5 minutes ago." "Wait, what, sold out?" He stared at his phone screen, unable to believe it. 10,000 units, 5 minutes, sold out. Unit price 2,800 yuan, 28 million in sales. Completed within 5 minutes. I stood on the mountaintop in the torrential rain. watching Ji Boheng's face collapse bit by bit. That face was like a building crumbling, cracking from the top and fissures spreading into every corner. Shenbing beside him quietly took 2 steps back, putting some distance between them. Mr. Ji, I said, your new brand launch is the day after tomorrow, right? I wish you every success. Ji Boheng said nothing. He turned and walked toward the path down the mountain. His steps faltered and he nearly fell. Shenbing didn't help him up. The live video of the snow mountain test went viral on social media that night. Searches for Extreme Realm jacket surpassed 20 million. My phone exploded with calls, dealers, investors, media, everyone asking the same question. When will the second batch be available? The answer is in 2 months. It's not that I don't want to sell it, it's that I really can't make it. Although Uncle Chen's biomimetic fabric technology has been proven successful, mass production requires building an entirely new production line. Chen's old apprentice engineer Zhong from Suzhou agreed to help us retrofit the equipment, but it will take at least 2 months. Those 2 months were the most agonizing days for me. I couldn't make money, couldn't take orders, and had to watch the market's enthusiasm fade before my eyes. But I'm not in a hurry because I know Ji Boheng is more anxious than I am. His new brand launch is scheduled for March 18, just 3 days after the Snow Mountain test. His team has been frantically adjusting their strategy in the last 72 hours, scrapping the spokesperson's commercial at the last minute, revising the product's promotional focus and even redesigning the booth layout overnight. But there was one problem they couldn't solve: the product. The design drawings Ji Boheng stole from my designer were based on the old fabric. Those designs work fine on regular materials, but when applied to the competing fabric, they simply couldn't achieve the advertised effect. Worse, Ji Boheng's supplier, the fabric mill in Taiju, provided materials that showed serious problems in quality tests. This news was told to me by Wen Yaro. Yi Ning, guess what I found out? Wen Yaro's voice on the phone was tinged with excitement. Speak. Ji Boheng's new brand Tuorfeng Outdoor of the first batch of 5,000 jackets produced 3000 failed the waterproof quality check before leaving the factory. He had the factory alter the test reports, marking the failures as passing, and planned to sell them at the launch. My heart sank. This is illegal, right? And I've already obtained the testimony of the factory's quality control supervisor. Wen Yaro said, do you want it? Yes. On the day of the press conference, I didn't go to the venue. I'm watching a live stream in the office. Ji Boheng stands on the stage, lights shining on him. He's wearing a dark blue suit and smiling confidently. The big screen is playing the sponsored celebrities commercial. In the footage, the star wears a brightly colored shell jacket and strikes various handsome poses against a snowy mountain backdrop. Everyone, Tuorfeng Outdoor's new brand, The Peak, is officially launching today. Thunderous applause from the audience. Ji Boheng began introducing the product's selling points: waterproof, breathable, warm, lightweight. Each data point was just a bit higher than my extreme products. Not much. Just a little, exactly enough to make people feel almost the same but slightly better. I knew those numbers were fake, but I said nothing. By the 30th minute of the launch, Ji Boheng brought the celebrity endorser on stage. The two interacted, and the atmosphere was lively. Just then, the big screen suddenly switched images. It wasn't an advertisement, it was a test report. The title of the report was Peak Performer Brand Softshell Jacket Waterproof Performance Test Report, Confidential Version. The data on the report is shocking. Number of samples submitted for testing: 50, waterproof standard passed 18, pass rate 36%. The audience below didn't react at first, thinking the wrong video was being played, but when the screen began to scroll through the test data for each sample, people started whispering. Ji Boheng turned around, saw what was on the big screen, and his expression changed instantly. Turn it off, he shouted toward the backstage. Who put this on? Turn it off. But the screen hadn't gone dark because it wasn't his staff operating the projection system, but my people. Xiao He had slipped into the press conference's technical team a day early as a volunteer and plugged a USB drive into the master control computer. The screen continued to display the second page, the written transcript of the factory quality control manager's recorded testimony. I am the quality inspection supervisor at the OEM factory for the Peak brand. I saw with my own eyes that Mr. Ji Boheng's people asked us to alter the inspection reports, marking all defective products as qualified. There were 5,000 pieces in this batch in total, of which 3,200 failed the waterproof standard, and 1,100 had zipper quality problems. The whole venue exploded. The dealers in the audience stood up one after another. Some took out their phones to take pictures, others shouted in anger. A middle-aged man wearing glasses rushed onto the stage and pointed at Ji Bohung's nose, yelling, "You lied. I signed an 8 million order contract and you gave me defective goods." Ji Bohung stepped back 2 paces and bumped into the backdrop behind him. The backdrop wobbled and almost toppled over. "No, this is fake, someone's framing me." But no one listened to his explanation because just then, the doors of the venue were pushed open. 3 people in uniforms walked in from the Market Supervision Bureau. "Mr. Ji Bohung, we received a report that your brand committed fraud in product quality testing. Please cooperate with our investigation." Ji Bohung's face at that moment completely turned ashen. When he was being taken away, he struggled at the venue doorway and turned back to take a glance at the stage. On the stage, the large screen was still lit, displaying his test report, a falsified, forged, deceitful report. I turned off the live stream and leaned back in the chair. The office was very quiet, with only the hum of the air conditioner running. The phone rang. It was Ji Bohung. I didn't pick up. He called 3 more times and I didn't answer any of them. Then he sent a text message. "When evening you won, but don't celebrate too soon. I'll come out, and when I do I'll make your life a living hell." I took a screenshot of the message and forwarded it to Lawyer Fang Yuan. "Lawyer Fang, can this message be considered a threat?" "Okay, I've archived it." News that Ji Bohung was taken away by the Market Regulation Bureau spread across the entire industry within 24 hours. The new brand of outdoors, the Pinnacle, on its release day became the industry's joke. Net jokers mocked wildly. "The Pinnacle hasn't reached the pinnacle and already collapsed. Buy one get one free. The free one is a defective product. Ji Bohung, your mother asks you to go home and revise the report." But Ji Bohung is Ji Bohung after all. He only stayed inside for 48 hours before being bailed out by his lawyer. He didn't fall, or rather, he was still holding on. The day after he was released, he held an emergency press conference, claiming the test report had been maliciously tampered with by competitors, that his product met all quality standards, and that he had instructed his lawyers to file criminal charges against the rumormongers. When he said rumormonger, his eyes were fixed on the camera as if he were looking at me. I knew he was bluffing because lawyer Fang Yuan told me that the Market Regulation Bureau had officially opened a case and seized all 5,000 items of the Peak brand for testing. Once the official test results are out, the evidence will be ironclad, and no matter how Ji Bohung tries to deny it, it won't matter. But before that, he still had a chance to turn things around. If he can secure all the dealers and investors before the official test results come out, and get them to keep supporting him, he can hold on. So I have to get there first and block every path for him. Lawyer Fang, help me set up meetings with all of Ji Bohung's investors one by one. Within 3 days, I met 6 of Ji Bohung's investors. For each person, I brought the same things: a photocopy of an authentic test report for the Pinnacle product, an audio recording of the factory quality control supervisor's testimony, and a news report about Ji Bohung being taken away at the press conference. The first investor, Mr. Liu, manages a fund of 500 million. He read the materials and was silent for a long time. "Miss Wen, what do you want me to do?" "Withdraw the investment." "Withdraw the investment? I invested 30 million in Ji Bohung. If I withdraw now, according to the contract I'll have to pay liquidated damages." "Mr. Liu, if you don't withdraw once the official test results come out, Ji Bohung's project will be a ticking time bomb. Then when your LPs, limited partners, ask why you invested in a fraudulent project, how will you explain it?" Mr. Liu was silent, and I added, "If you're willing to withdraw your investment, I can give you a follow-on opportunity in Extreme Realm. We're launching our Series B next month. The valuation has tripled since Series A. Your 30 million to Ji Bohung, if transferred to Extreme Realm, will at least double by this time next year." Mr. Liu looked up at me, his eyes brightening. "Are you sure?" In black and white, of the 6 people, 5 agreed to withdraw their investment. The 6th person, an angel investor named Laroju, hesitated. "Miss Wen, I've known Ji Bohung for 10 years. Although he's unreliable, his father helped me back then. I can't kick him when he's down." "Mr. Ju, I understand." I stood up. "But I need to remind you of one thing. Ji Bohung's Hongyuan capital has 1 $5 billion in debt maturing next March. If his new brand fails and investors pull out, what will he use to repay by then? The 20 million you invested will be gone without a trace. Old Jew's expression changed. Is what you said true? You can check for yourself. The next day Old Jew pulled out his investment too. 5 investors pulled out, totaling 120 million. At that moment, the most crucial pillar of Ji Boheng's capital chain was yanked away. When the news reached Ji Boheng's ears, he was in a meeting in his office. According to people at his company, he smashed the coffee cup in his hand onto the floor, then swept all the documents on the desk to the ground, and swore into the air for 10 minutes. Then he picked up the phone and called me. Wen Yining, are you trying to kill me? His voice was hoarse, carrying a tremor on the verge of breaking. President Ji, I'm just doing to you what you did to me. You poached my people, stole my designs, cut off my suppliers, stopped my loan, sealed off my press venue. Which of those wasn't trying to kill me? You, President Ji, do you remember what you said? You said I should calculate the return on the time you invested in me. Now I'll do the math for you. The 15 million you put into me, I will pay you back with principal and interest, but the things you took from me, my trust, my time, my 2 years, how will you repay those? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Ji Boheng said something that surprised me. Yining, can we talk? About what? Talk, a truce. You let me go, I let you go. We both take a step back. I laughed. Ji Boheng, you're scared now, too late. I hung up the phone. One afternoon in April, I received a call from lawyer Fang Yuan in my office. Yining, good news. The court's ruling has come down. Chen Guodong's patent invalidation petition has been upheld. The patent held by that shell company under Ji Boheng's name has been revoked. Brother Chen can reapply for the patent. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. There's one more piece of news, Fang Yuan said. Ji Boheng's 200 million high-interest loan is due next Monday. He doesn't have the money to repay it. What did Ma Dong say? Ma Dong said that as long as you can pay the price, he can transfer the debt to you. How much? 180 million, discount of 20 million. I did the math. Wen Yao's 50 million has arrived. The company squeezed out 30 million in cash flow. The house was mortgaged for 20 million, and with Uncle Chen's patent pledge, we borrowed 100 million from the industrial fund. A total of 200 million. Enough. Buy it, I said. Monday, April 18, the due date for Ji Boheng's loan shark. 10:00 a.m. Ji Boheng's office. He sat at his desk, a pile of documents spread out before him, his face pale. His chief financial officer stood opposite him, voice trembling. Mr. Ji, Ma Dong called. He said that if the money isn't paid by 5 p.m. today, he'll exercise the pledge right and dispose of your equity in Hongyuan Capital. I know. Ji Boheng's voice was hoarse. How are the financing talks going? Mr. Liu isn't taking calls anymore. Mr. Zhu isn't either. All the investors, they, all what? All turned us down. Ji Boheng slammed the pen in his hand onto the desk. Wen Yining, he gritted his teeth as he spoke my name as if uttering a curse. At 3 in the afternoon, Ji Boheng's phone rang. It was Ma Dong. Mr. Ji, is the money ready? Ma Ji, give me a few more days. I can't extend it. Ma Dong's voice was very cold. President Ji, you should know I don't lend money for nothing. If the money isn't transferred by 5 o'clock today, your shares will be mine. Ma Ji, we've worked together for so many years. That's precisely why I'm calling you after all these years of cooperation. President Ji, someone offered a higher price and bought your debt. From today on, I'm no longer your creditor. Ji Boheng's heart suddenly sank. Who? Wen Yining. The phone slipped from Ji Boheng's hand, fell onto the table and made a dull thud. At 4 in the afternoon, I sat in my office, a document displayed on the computer screen in front of me. That's the pledge agreement for 15% of Ji Boheng's shares in Hongyuan Capital now. The control over this agreement is in my hands. If Ji Boheng doesn't repay the money by 5 o'clock, I can apply to auction off his shares, and if his shares are auctioned, the other investors in Hongyuan Capital will pull out in a panic and the entire company will collapse. Ji Boheng knew this, so at 4:30 in the afternoon, he showed up at the entrance of the Jijing company. He stood outside the glass door, his suit wrinkled, his tie crooked, his hair a mess, his eyes were swollen and red, his lips chapped. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. The girl at the reception stopped him. President Ji, you can't go in. Out of the way. He shoved aside the receptionist and barged in. The employees in the hallway hurried to get out of his way. As if they'd seen a madman, he pushed open the door to my office and stood in the doorway, panting heavily. I sat in my chair and looked at him. Mr. G, what is it? He walked in and closed the door, then he did something I didn't expect. He knelt down, his knee hit the floor with a dull thud. Ening, I'm begging you. His voice trembled, his eyes brimming with tears. Spare me, let me go this once and I'll agree to anything, money, shares, resources, whatever you want. I watched him kneel on the ground. Feeling nothing, no pleasure, no sympathy, only a bone-deep calm. Ji Boheng, do you remember what you said to your brother that night on the balcony? His body stiffened. You said when Ening is fine in every way except she's too competitive. Someone who started out selling goods on the street really thinks she can accomplish something big. I need to calculate the return on the time I invest in her. His tears fell. Ening, I was wrong, I really was, give me one more chance. Do you remember the words you said in my office? He looked up, tears blurring his eyes as he stared at me. You said, when Ening, you were nothing more than an investment to me. I stood up, walked over to him and looked down at him from above. Ji Boheng, you're kneeling before me now not because you love me, not because you regret it, but because you lost. If your funding hadn't dried up, if your investors hadn't pulled out, if you still had a chance to turn things around, would you be kneeling here? He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. That won't happen. I spoke for him. You'll stand somewhere high up smoking and laugh to your brothers. That woman, when Ening, I ruined her. I turned and walked to the desk, picked up my phone and dialed a number. Hello, Market Supervision Bureau, I want to report a company's tax evasion. The company involved is Hung Yuan Capital. The amount involved. I glanced at Ji Boheng. At least 50 million. Ji Boheng scrambled up from the ground and lunged to snatch my phone. I stepped back. He grabbed at nothing and fell to the floor. President G, you're still trying to take my phone. Should I add another charge for attempted robbery? He lay face down on the floor, trembling all over. When Ening, you're not human, not human. I crouched down to look him in the eye. Ji Boheng, when you stole my designs, were you human? When you dug up my people, were you human? When you cut off my suppliers, stopped my loans and froze my premises, were you human? He said nothing. Ji Boheng, listen carefully. Starting today, your Hung Yuan Capital will collapse within a month. Your partners will run, your investors will sue you, your creditors will come after you for repayment. You will lose everything, just like you once tried to make me lose everything. I stood up, walked to the door and pulled it open. Now please leave. Ji Boheng got up from the floor and staggered toward the door. When he reached the doorway, he stopped and looked back at me. In those eyes were fear, anger, and unwillingness, but not a trace of regret. When Ening, you will regret this. You've already said that 3 times. He left. The corridor echoed with his stumbling footsteps and the whispered conversations of the staff. I closed the door and stand by the window. Outside the window, Shenzhen's skyline is gilded by the setting sun. My phone rings. It's Wen Yao. Yi Ning, I heard Ji Boheng caused a scene at your company. Are you okay? It's nothing. Lin Xiu posted an update online saying she and Ji Boheng are just ordinary friends and even exposed the chat logs of Ji Boheng harassing her. Shen Bing also resigned and it said she took quite a few of Ji Boheng's company's legal documents with her. As expected. What do you plan to do now? I look at the sunset outside the window. Wait, what are we waiting for? Waiting for him to collapse on his own. May. Ji Boheng's Hung Yuan Capital crumbled within a month. First was the equity auction. Because of the debt I held, Ji Boheng's 15% stake in Hung Yuan Capital was seized by the court and entered the auction process. Once the news broke, the other investors in Hung Yuan Capital rushed to redeem their shares, triggering a bank run panic. Then the partners fled. Ji Boheng's 2 partners, A. Ken and another called Laro Zhao, under pressure from investors demanding repayment, fled overnight with some of the company's funds. It's said A. Ken went to Southeast Asia and Laro Zhao hid back in his hometown. Next the investors sued 5 investors including Mr. Liu and Laro Zhu sued Ji Boheng in court for fraudulent investment, demanding he compensate their losses, with total claims as high as 200 million. Finally there was a tax investigation. The tax evasion case I reported was confirmed by the Tax Bureau. Over the past 3 years, Hung Yuan Capital had evaded taxes of 53 million by inflating costs and concealing income. As the legal representative, Ji Boheng faces criminal charges. One evening in mid-May, after working late, I walked down to the parking lot beneath the company building. My car was parked in a corner on the first basement level. It was very quiet around, with only the humming of the fluorescent lights. I walked up to the car, took out my keys, and pressed the unlock button. The car lights flashed. I pull open the driver's door, just about to get in. Yi Ning. A voice comes from behind the car. I turn around. Ji Boheng stepped out from behind the car. He was wearing a crumpled white shirt with no jacket, his trousers dust-streaked and his shoes dirty. He had lost a lot of weight, his cheekbones jutted, his eye sockets hollowed, stubble on his face. He looked 10 years older, his hands were empty. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice very calm. I want to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. Yining, I'm begging you." His voice was choked with tears. "My father's company is under investigation too. The tax bureau says if he's found guilty, he'll go to prison. He's 63 this year, he has heart disease." I leaned against the car door, arms crossed, watching him. So could you show mercy, withdraw the complaint? I know I shouldn't say this, but my dad, he really doesn't know what I do out there. Ji Boheng. I cut him off. "Your dad doesn't know what you do out there. When you stole Mr. Chen's patent back then, who helped you find the legal team? When you stole my design drawings, who pulled the strings for you? Don't tell me your dad didn't know any of that." Ji Boheng's face went pale. How did you know?" "Because I investigated," I said. "Ji Boheng, do you think the things you did are only your own problem? They're not your father, your family's network, your family's money. They're all tools of your wrongdoing. Not a single person in your family is clean." Ji Boheng's body swayed as if struck by a punch. "Yining, I'm begging you." His voice grew lower and lower. "I'll do whatever you want. I'll kowtow to you." He actually knelt down. His knee thudded against the concrete, letting out a dull sound. He lowered his head, his forehead almost touching the ground. "Please." I looked at him and complex emotions churned in my heart, but none of them were pity. "Ji Boheng, do you know why I can stand here today?" He raised his head, his teary eyes looking at me foggily. "It's not that I'm so great, it's just I don't have your resources, your connections, or your money. I started from selling goods on the street. Every penny was earned by myself, every client I negotiated myself, every product I designed myself. I can afford to lose because everything I have I earned myself." I paused. "But you're different. Everything you have was given to you by your father, stolen by you, or cheated by you, so you can't afford to lose, because once you lose, you'll have nothing left." Ji Boheng knelt on the ground, his whole body trembling. I pulled open the car door and slid into the driver's seat. I started the engine. The headlights came on, illuminating Ji Boheng kneeling on the ground. He was kneeling in front of the hood, blocking my way. "Move," I said. He wouldn't let it. "Ji Boheng, I'm going to count to 3. 1. He didn't move. 2. He still didn't move. 3. I shifted into reverse. The car rolled back 2 meters. Then I turned the wheel and drove around him in the rearview mirror. He knelt in the empty parking lot, his figure growing smaller and smaller. I drove the car out of the underground garage and onto the main road. The city lights outside the car window were dazzling, neon signs flashing in the night. I turned on the stereo. That song, "I Will Survive," started playing. Again I turn up the volume and hum softly along with the melody. "I will survive, I will survive." Tears slide from the corners of my eyes, run down my cheeks, and drop onto the collar of my softshell jacket. But I'm not crying, I'm just saying goodbye. Farewell to the Wen Yining who once believed in love. Farewell to the Wen Yining who had Ji Boheng written into her future plans. Farewell to the Wen Yining who watched the stars at the campsite. From now on, there will be no more Ji Boheng in my life. A year later, December, Shenzhen Stock Exchange. The Jijing brand has officially been listed on the A-share market, stock code 603626. On the day of the bell ringing, I wore a white shirt with a black suit jacket over it. I didn't wear a softshell jacket, because today is a different battlefield. At 9:15 a.m. I stood on the bell-ringing platform. Beside me my team, Xiao He, Sister Wang, Uncle Chen, and Engineer Zhong who had rushed over from Suzhou. Uncle Chen was wearing a brand new Zhongshan suit, his hair dyed black, looking much more spirited. His patent had been reapplied and approved. And this time it was an international patent covering more than a dozen countries and regions including Europe, America, Japan, and South Korea. Uncle Chen, nervous? I asked him softly. Not nervous. He smiled. Much easier than mending shoes. 9:25 The countdown begins. 10, 9, 8, 7 Everyone in the audience joins the countdown. 6, 5, 4, 3 I gripped the bell striker. 2, 1 I rang the bell. Clang. The bell echoed through the trading hall and the big screen flashed the opening price of Jijing, issue price 28 yuan. Opening price jumped directly to 42 yuan, a 50% increase. Applause thundered throughout the hall. Xiao He cried. Sister Wang took off her glasses and wiped the corner of her eye. Uncle Chen smiled and clapped his hands. I stood on the stage, watching the numbers flicker on the big screen, feeling very calm. After the bell ringing ceremony, I gave an interview to the media. The reporter asked many questions: the original intention of starting the business, the secret of success, plans for the future. I answered them one by one. The last question was asked by a female reporter. Mr. Wen, we understand that you experienced many setbacks during your entrepreneurship, including being betrayed by partners and oppressed by competitors. May I ask, what drove you to get to where you are today? I was silent for 2 seconds, then I smiled at the camera. I'm grateful to someone who made me realize that there's no longer a place for him in my life plan. The reporter froze for a moment. Who is this person? Not important anymore, I said. What matters is that he taught me something. A woman's greatest confidence doesn't come from finding a good man, but from making herself into a strong brand. When you are strong enough, anyone who leaves you is just a passage in your story, not the ending. That afternoon, the interview video went viral online. Some people guessed I was talking about Ji Boheng, others flooded the comments calling Ji Boheng a top-tier scumbag. Some liked my boss-level comeback. But I don't care about those. What I care about is something else. That same afternoon, I received a message. Ji Boheng was formally arrested on multiple charges, including suspected tax evasion, commercial fraud, and falsifying test reports, and is awaiting trial. His Hongyuan capital has already entered bankruptcy liquidation. His family business has been sealed by the tax bureau, and all the properties and deposits under his father's name have been frozen. He went from a capital tycoon with 3 billion in assets to a penniless prisoner, and all of this took less than a year. At night, I returned to the company alone. The office was very quiet. The night view of Shenzhen outside the window looked like a painting. I sat in the chair, opened the drawer, and took something out, a hiking backpack. Not the company's new product, but the kind I sold when I first set up a street stall, an ordinary cheap backpack with no technical features. That was 6 years ago, the first style I sold at Dongmen Night Market. I put it on the table, looked at it, and remembered many things. I remembered the days being chased by the urban management officers while selling at Dongmen, the nights in the rented room revising design drawings through the night, the nights in the factory working with laborious to rush orders. I remembered the man making a phone call on the balcony, the man smoking in my office, the man kneeling in the parking lot begging me. Then I picked up my phone, opened the Notes app, and found that line. From today on, there is no longer Ji Boheng in my life plans. I deleted that line not because I still missed him, but because I no longer need to remind myself. Ji Boheng is someone who has completely disappeared from my life, like a drop falling into the sea without even leaving a ripple. I put my phone in my pocket, grabbed the backpack on the desk, turned off the office light, and walked out of the company. The corridor was very dark, with only the green emergency exit sign illuminated. I pressed the elevator button, the door opened, and I stepped in. The elevator went down to the first floor, and the door opened. I walked out of the building, stood at the curb, and looked up at the night sky. The night sky over Shenzhen still showed no stars, but I no longer needed them, because I myself am the brightest star. The end.